you. Vielen Dank für Ihren tollen Präsentation. Next to go would be Benoit. Benoit would be talking about climate technologies and innovation.
Absolutely. Can you hear me well? You can hear me well?
We can hear you fantastically well, yeah.
Good, good. Can I share my screen? I have maybe some few slides and pictures. So can you authorize me to share my screen?
Yes,
yeah,
I think that should be done in the moment. I don't have that authority, but I think they should.
No, thank you. I think I am currently showing my screen. So what you see here is a world as we don't know it, but that was our world 20,000 years ago. That was the Ice Age. And Earth was very different at the Ice Age. As you can see, a large chunk of the ice cap in the south was very large. You can see in this Ice Age map of 20,000 years old that there was an ice cover of 1 kilometer above where New York is currently located. That means that at the time it was the Ice Age, a lot of water was in the form of ice, and the level of seawater was 120 meters below what we know. And when we look at the Indian continent, this is what we have 20,000 years ago. During the Ice Age, the sea level was 120 meters lower than today's. The world was a totally different world because it was an Ice Age. I'm sharing this just for us to keep in mind that 20,000 years ago, when we left the Ice Age, the average temperature was -5 degrees Celsius. -5 degrees Celsius doesn't seem a lot, but for planet Earth, it's a totally different world, with the ice cap above 1 kilometer on New York City, no Scandinavia, no British Island because of lower sea level. And look at the condition, there was no Sri Lanka as an island, as you can see. Anyway, global warming is already happening. And since we are extracting from the ground some mineral coal starting in 1750, we have increased the average temperature by 1.2 degrees in the world. We live in a world of 16.2 degrees C nowadays. It's above 1 degree C compared to the precedent Holocene, the era of great climate stability. We face a world where if we continue to reinforce climate change, if we continue to emit greenhouse gas emission through the burning of fossil fuel, but also through deforestation, we may increase global temperature before the end of the century, a minimum of 2 degrees C and up to 5 degrees C. And this is unheard in the history of humanity and the planet. Never in the past, the evolution of climate was so quick in such a short time. This pace of global warming is 100 times faster than the pace it took Earth to move from the Ice Age to the current level of greenhouse gas emission. We absolutely don't want a world where we exceed a warming above 2 degrees C. And this is why we have to address net zero development everywhere. This is a series of pictures of today's climate changing in front of us. The last one, I just took it from the news of the tornadoes in the US, but the rest is coming from a big fire event, flood, famine happening in Madagascar, huge flood in New York, in Korea, in Japan, a reminder of COP26 also, and today the tornado. So climate change is already part of our life. Just with 1 degree Celsius increase, much more can unfortunately happen if we don't collectively address climate change. I like this map. This is a map showing in blue the most vulnerable countries to climate change. The more blue, the more the vulnerable the countries are to climate change. The irony here is that the countries that have contributed the least to climate change, the countries that have not yet fully developed, are the ones who are the most vulnerable to climate change. And this is a big global injustice that the North vis-à-vis impose on the South. We have a collective responsibility now, make sure that we prevent climate change disaster, that we adapt to a warming climate, but that we also collectively work to stop climate change and to limit climate change. Everything, everyone does, everywhere, every moment, we consume energy. And we have to accept that. Energy is the heart of the development. Energy is the lifeblood of any human and economic development. Typically, in a century, the population grew by a factor 4. In 1900, the world population was 1.5 billion people. In 2000, we reached 6 billion people. But in the meantime, we developed our economy like never in the past. And the level of energy we consume during the same period was multiplied by a factor 16. So you see, a growing population requiring massive amount of energy. As a consequence, we are burning more and more fossil energy because 85% of the energy today come from fossil energy, oil, coal, and gas. So how to address it? Let's take a very concrete example of an energy system emitting some greenhouse gas emission. This is a car, and we know that a car emits greenhouse gas emission, and not only CO2. A car can emit, F-gas through the air conditioning, but also methane and so on. Anyway, if we consider all the greenhouse gases, there are 4 blocks of intervention, 4 possibilities to reduce the carbon footprint, the greenhouse gas emission from this car. The first step is to change lifestyle and behavior change. You may have a car, but you may decide not to use a car and prefer to use public transport or ride your bike or walk. You can also have an eco-driving attitude and consume less, but just by the way you drive. You can also decide to use a car only when the car is has 4 people instead of 1. So anyway, by just adjusting some behavior and changing some of the lifestyle, we can reduce the greenhouse gas emission. The second step is energy efficiency. This is the heart of my work over the last 30 years. I'm what's called an energy efficiency expert. I can tell you everything about the possibility to reduce the energy we consume for the same amount of service that we need. And for a car, if I choose a small, light car, I will consume 2-3 times less energy for the same service that the car provides. Then comes the choice of energy. In today's world, we have more and more the choice of the type of oil, gas, or energy that we can use for a car. If you switch from gasoline to hybrid, from hybrid to electric car, from electric car to hydrogen, the carbon footprint will be different. But there is also a 4th block that's not always considered. It's the fact that to produce a car, we need some material, glass, steel, aluminum, copper. plastics. And for each of these materials, the industry emits some greenhouse gas emission. So whatever the energy system that we consider, it could be your laptop, it could be your smartphone, it could be an air conditioner, a car, or even a whole city. There's always the 4 blocks that we need to take into account if we want to move on a low carbon path. Lifestyle change and behavior, energy efficiency, choice of energy, and reduce the material footprint. In some places, we talk about avoid, shift, improve. Avoid through lifestyle and behavior change, shift through decarbonize energy resources, and improve through energy efficiency. Anyway, compared to the current trend in greenhouse gas emission, despite all we know about climate change, despite all the risk we are able to assess, despite all the reality we are already facing vis-a-vis climate change, the trend in greenhouse gas emission has not stopped growing. We are still emitting more and more greenhouse gas. We imperatively have to move the whole world on a low carbon path. And there are 4 blocks, as I said. Lifestyle change and behavior, number 1. Number 2, energy efficiency. Let's think about the service that we need. Mobility, communication, coal, light, heat. This is the service that we need, and we can decouple the energy that we consume vis-a-vis the service that we can get. Then renewable energy. We have to be careful that renewable energy alone will not take us to where we need to go. There is massive energy, renewable energy in this world, but this current trend in massive renewable energy is not replacing conventional energy, and it can only come as a substitute to fossil energy if we do address the energy demand for energy efficiency and lifestyle and behavior change. The last chunk is material and improve carbon sink. We have to stop deforestation. We have also to reduce the carbon footprint of any product that we produce. Those are the 4 blocks, and various international institutions like the International Energy Agency, but also the UN, the OECD, have proven that we have to combine the 4 blocks to move the world on the decarbonized path. If I could summarize, reaching net zero can be summarized in D. The first D is to decarbonize. This is obvious. To decarbonize, we need to decouple. To decouple the energy that we consume compared to the service that we need. We need to decouple the GDP, the growth, from the resources that we use. Decoupling. Decentralize. During many years, climate change has been a global topic. We now need to bring climate change to the level of a state, like in Tamil Nadu. We have to bring climate change to the decentralized level where decision to address climate change has to be made. By the way, climate change is impacting communities everywhere in the world. It's a very local impact. So we have also to decentralize the way we think, the way we address climate change. And I'm always pleased to contribute to states or local authorities trying to address climate change in a decentralized manner. We have the global discussion happening at the UN level and the COP and so on, but the response has to be local. Tamil Nadu is a very high developed state where the digital economy is well present. And I believe that the digitalization of our world can be a blessing for addressing climate change, because through digitalization, we can collect the data that is missing to take decision. We can manage the complex energy system, like on-time balancing between the energy that we produce from decentralized renewable energy with the energy that we need. We can balance the energy grid. Digitalization can also help share the information. I'm talking to you from Paris. This is a blessing of digitalization. Digitalization can help every designer everywhere to access the knowledge to design system, product, cities, buildings, having in mind the imperative of climate change. I think we have to be disruptive. I think we have really to change the way we have seen this world so far, and we should not be afraid of major change. And sometimes, yes, we have to be disruptive in the way we think in order to develop the solution that we need. And the last D is very important for me. Desirable. We have to desire the change that we are facing. We have to move from sustainable development goals to sustainable and desirable development goals. Because if we don't desire, if we don't accept the change, we are not going to engage this disruptive, digitalized, decentralized, decoupling, decarbonization of the world that we need. Anyway, to conclude, let me bring to your attention this following beautiful online tool called EN-ROADS. I am switching my screen to go on live, and you can see here a very interesting tool where on top you have typically a series of graphs like the global source of primary energy, but also you can see the greenhouse gas emission, and you can see today the current trend in greenhouse gas emission brings a global warming up to 3.6 degrees C. We don't want this world. At the bottom, you have a series of indicators and cursors, and it just takes anyone to click here and to move, like reducing coal, oil, gas, bioenergy, I want to improve, renewable, I want to ensure, and so on. Do I want a carbon price? I do a carbon. And you can see by just moving the cursor that we can reduce impact. I'm showing that to you because it is important to understand the scale. This is a global tool, but it is also very useful to understand that it is not just one action that will take us to where we need. It's not enough to decarbonize energy. We have to also think the energy demand. We can play on population growth, on deforestation. So the last edition of this graph is the following. There is now, you can choose here in impact, the impact on any coastal zone. And this is what I have for Chimney. And here, this is a moving a live picture. In blue, you have the current area that will be flooded, land at risk by the end of this century. And the long-term equilibrium indicate that this is the area that will be flooding under the current trend of greenhouse gas emission. With this, let me stop my presentation, and I'll be delighted to exchange with you all.